All right, let's start test automation with Cypress. Cypress is a tool, it's an end to end testing framework built specifically for modern web applications. Okay, so you might have heard about Selenium in automation, right? And if you're intimidated by Selenium and installation and all that, don't worry. This tool is going to eliminate all that. And I think it's a great way to learn scripting because you have to keep it simple when you're first starting. We could very well sit here and teach you Selenium and all that stuff, but it's just going to overwhelm you and you're going to drop it. And that's not our goal at all. At Relevant Technologies, we are all about teaching you skills that you can actually use and implement and put to use, right? So that's why we're starting with Cypress. Unlike traditional tools like Selenium, Cypress runs directly in the browser. Okay. It runs alongside your application, giving it access to both the front end and the network traffic. Okay. That's the beauty about Cypress. So you don't have to install Selenium like I was telling you. This unique architecture enables Cypress to offer features that make testing faster, more reliable, and easier to debug. So you can go to cypress.io. It's cypress.io. This is their website. Okay. And some key features of Cypress are that it offers real-time reloading. As you write tests, Cypress automatically reloads, showing test results instantly. And it has automatic waiting. Cypress automatically waits for elements to appear. Okay. So if you're not familiar with Selenium, I don't expect you to know Selenium, but I want you to keep in mind that with Selenium, you have to add a few more steps in order to wait for the elements on the web page to appear. Like for instance, like you have this button, all these are elements. The text is an element, the button is an element. Here, the chat window is an element. And all these are elements, on the web page. You have to give it some time for the web page to load and the elements to show on your page. So that's why you have to manually wait for those elements. You have to put manual waits and implicit waits and things like that. Don't worry about them, but just keep in mind that with Selenium, you have to manually wait for those elements and you have to code that in your script. But with Cypress, the beauty of Cypress is that it has automatic waiting. Cypress automatically waits for those elements to appear, animations to complete, and network requests to finish. Reducing the need for manual waits in your test scripts. So you don't have to manually write those wait statements in your scripts. So that has been eliminated. That's why I picked this tool for you in this course. We're eliminating a lot of things that can overwhelm you and making it simple for you. Because what if you don't want to become an automation engineer, right? What if you don't have time to learn and also has the time to create those scripts in your work? What if you're doing this on the side on your own and if you don't have enough time, right? So this is going to eliminate all that. This tool will help you speed up your automation. It eliminates a lot of overhead that comes with tools like Selenium. Okay. And it has built-in assertions. So Cypress includes a rich set of built-in assertions that are easy to use and integrate directly into your test scripts. And we're going to talk about what those are. Okay. And again, why do you want to choose Cypress for automated testing? Cypress is quickly becoming the go-to tool for developers and testers. And I like it for its simplicity and its robustness and also fast execution. There are definitely some limitations that we're going to talk about in a bit. Every tool has pros and cons. But for what we are doing, checking the functionality, I think this works really well. And here are some reasons why Cypress stands out for me. Okay. So it's easy setup and configuration. Cypress is simple to install and configure. And we're going to look at that in a bit. Unlike other tools that require additional drivers or complex setup, Cypress works out of the box. Okay, you just install and start using it. And one of the benefits is its fast and reliable test execution. Cypress runs directly in the browser, which means that it can interact with the DOM and network request with incredible speed. Okay, so there's no engine like Selenium sitting in front of this browser to communicate. Okay, that's an additional network communication that happens with the browser. But with Cypress, because it directly runs inside the browser, it can interact with these elements much faster and making the test run fast and with fewer false positives, because that's a huge problem in test automation, getting false positives. With this tool, there are fewer false positives. And another great advantage of this tool is that it offers comprehensive testing capabilities. It supports all types of testing, including unit testing, integration testing, and end to end testing. Okay, so that's why your developers can use this tool and you can use the tool. And it's also powerful because it can mock network requests, making it very versatile for various testing needs also. Okay, so let's not go into too much detail, but understand that Cypress is much faster and it runs inside the browser. If you have to take away something from this, know that Cypress runs directly in the browser and it interacts with the elements of the browser very fast. So if you know Selenium or you don't, or if you're a tester already using Selenium for your automation, or if you hear somebody talking about all the great things of Selenium, which by the way are great, but you have to understand the differences between Cypress and Selenium. And then you can appreciate why Cypress is often preferred for modern web testing. Okay, so first let's talk about its architecture, the differences between Selenium and Cypress with respect to the architecture. Selenium works by controlling the browser remotely. Okay, it works remotely using a web driver. So there is a driver that Selenium needs in order to interact with the web browser. And it supports a wide range of browsers and languages, but can be more complex to set up and maintain. So that's about Selenium. And Cypress runs directly inside the browser, which provides more direct control and insight into the application. But the limitation of Cypress is that it supports only JavaScript or TypeScript, but offers a much smoother and faster testing experience. And also it has some limitation on what browsers you can use. Chrome, definitely you can use Chrome. And with some limitations with other browsers, but definitely there is some limitation, but not a lot. They're also improving and expanding to other browsers. But for testing the functionality, this is great. For compatibility testing across different browsers, this may not be a great tool, but if you want to run and check the functionality of your web applications, then this is great. Again, keep in mind, this is for web applications only. And now let's talk about ease of use. Selenium requires more boilerplate code and manual management of waits and synchronizations, like we talked about. So you have to write more code. Cypress, on the other hand, it simplifies testing with automatic waits, a simpler API, and built-in commands that reduce the amount of code you need to write. If you understand a few simple statements or commands, then that is enough for you to write working scripts, and you don't have to worry a lot about the internal workings as such. Okay, and that's why I like Cypress if you're starting new with automation. And then for debugging, Selenium debugging can be more challenging due to its architecture, which separates the test execution from the browser. And these tests fail a lot too, because so much happens outside of the browser, the test execution, then, you have to maintain the Selenium scripts quite a bit, and there's a lot of failures. The percentage of failures that happen with Selenium is quite more because of the way the test scripts run. Nothing to do with the functionality, but there's definitely an upkeep and maintenance that goes into Selenium frameworks and test scripts. Whereas Cypress offers a more straightforward debugging experience with tools like time travel, where you can step through each command and see what happened at every stage of the test. Okay, now let's take a look at an example. Imagine you want to test a login feature on a web application. With Selenium, you may have to write several lines of code. So if you count here, there are 11 lines of code for Selenium. Okay, in contrast, Cypress allows you to write the test in a more concise and readable way, and it automatically handles weights and synchronization. So here, if you see, it has to start the Chrome driver. This is Java, by the way, and it has to create an object for the Chrome driver, and it has to open the web page, and it has to find that element, the username. This is for login feature. It has to look for the login username field and then send the text into the username, like type the username into the username field. And same for password, and find the login button and then click on it. So these are all the steps. It takes 11 steps to enter the username and password and click login. Whereas in Cypress, all it takes is 4 steps, 4 statements. And it's so easy to read, right? Cy is a Cypress command, right? You starts with cy dot. Okay, when we're going to talk about this in a bit, we're going to show you how to create this and run them. So cy.visit, you're visiting a web page, a URL, and then you're getting this element, and we're going to talk about how to create this, by the way. And once you visit the URL, then you use cy.get, and this is the element, and we're going to talk about how to identify these elements, okay? And you get that element, you find that element, and then you type the username. Very simple. In one statement, you can do all that, and the same for password. And then you get this element or find this element and click on it. That's pretty much it. The 4 statements, you have done the complete login automation. How simple and neat is that? Here in Selenium, you have to obviously install Selenium, set it up, install the Chrome driver, interact with the browser via this web driver. Here we are using Chrome, but you need this driver to interact with the web browser. But here Cypress is running directly inside the browser. That's why you don't need any extra drivers. Okay, you understand that? So don't worry about the details. Just understand that with Cypress, it's easy to set up and you don't need any external drivers like Selenium does. So somebody who understands Selenium and they don't understand Cypress, they may start talking about drivers and engine and interacting with the browser and things like that. So when somebody talks about all this, how Cypress does and what kind of driver do you need to install and things like that, if they ask you, let them know that you don't need any drivers for Cypress. And that's why we are focusing on this, because you might get confused. When somebody who's familiar with Selenium and other test automation tools, they only talk about Selenium most of the time and they don't talk about Cypress. But Cypress is very popular, by the way, even though you may not have heard it. Many industries, companies use Cypress because it's very robust and it's very fast. Okay. So people are still adapting to it. I mean, especially again, keep in mind that compatibility testing, this may not be the right tool, but for functionality, this is amazing. If you want to just quickly test if your test cases run and the functionality is good and your application works as it's supposed to, this is great. And you get the results very fast. And then you can use other tools for other types of testing, compatibility testing and running on different browsers and things like that. You can use Selenium and whatnot, other types of tools. But in order to automate and execute your test cases, repeatedly, if you're just using Chrome, for example, This is great tool, right? Unless you're running the same tests, across different browsers. And again, you don't run every single test on every other browser, right? You only pick a few test cases to run them across all the browsers, because it's never ending. You cannot just finish your test cases if you run your hundreds and hundreds of test cases across all the browsers every single time. So when you do compatibility testing is by running your tests across different browsers, then you pick a subset of your test cases. You choose what test cases you want to run across different browsers, right? So at that time, you can use a different tool. But in order to test the majority of your functionality on a single browser, this is very, very useful, and I highly recommend it. All right, now that we have introduced you to Cypress and we talked about the differences between Selenium and Cypress, let's get hands on. And in the next section, we're going to just do hands on exercise. Okay, we're going to install Cypress, we're going to write our test scripts, and we're going to execute them. All right, let's have fun.